Jim, 8 clubs, a manager, over 35 years. You won a title as a Morton player and as Morton manager, 30 years apart, which is extraordinary. Where have you been happiest in the dugout?
Probably, there's been 2 places I think in particular. I think in the dugout as a manager in particular would be Dundee, I think, and at Morton, when the chairman Douglas Ray was there. If I started Dundee, although both times were very difficult financially, the first time under Ron Dixon, and financially it was very difficult. The second time when Peter and Jimmy Marvin charged with the infamous Giovanni Di Stefano was there. So financially for the club, that was difficult. But in terms of feeling, a part of something, and having a great atmosphere within the club, both times were great. The people in the club, the people in the background, the office staff, the ground staff, the players, the directors, in both occasions were all just fantastic people, and we just had a great rapport. And it really was, I mean, people use that kind of phrase, kind of family club, but it really was like, you just felt so comfortable. I mean, even if my kids and family went to the games, they just felt a part of it. Everyone was just so, just friendly, just nice. Generally, everybody just got on really well together. And as I said, the atmosphere in the dressing room, around the stadium, and amongst all the players and staff, as I said, was terrific. And then, as I said to you, when I went to Morton under Douglas Ray, it took a couple of months for him to trust me, if you want to call it that, suss me out, and I liked that. And but he was absolutely terrific for me. And again, I think we did a good job at both of these clubs at various times. And I think the biggest reason for that is, of course you need good players, but you need trust and support of the owners, and I managed to have that in both of those times.
Of course, Douglas made his fortune out of confectionery.
Yeah.
Plenty of sweets about the place, was there? No shortage of sweets for the
families.
families.
I don't drink, but I do like a wee
bag of
chocolate now and again. But no, he didn't hand in too much of that. But it was just more the fact is, he would invite you up to the house, you'd have a cup of tea, you would sit down with him, he would love to talk football, he would come down to the training ground, he would like to come into the dressing room after the games. Some people used to say to me, he would, before I went there, he wants to pick a team, he wants to do this, he wants to do that. Absolute nonsense.
He properly loved Morton, didn't he? He was heart and soul, wasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. His great friend was the great Arthur Montford, who was a big Morton fan, and I knew Arthur very well from my first time playing at Morton. And again, a great man. But yeah, I mean, the chairman was just a gem, a man, and again gave his heart and soul to the club and the community. And I think anybody connected with Morton even to this day should be eternally grateful for Douglas Ray, because I don't think if he was there wouldn't be a Morton. And similarly, so up at Dundee, guys like Malcolm Reid and John Black and Nigel Squires, and just people would think, well, a lot of people wouldn't even know who these people are, but these are directors who put their hand in their pocket and help the club survive. And again, when there was times there that there was just if these people aren't there and don't contribute, as I said, I wouldn't be surprised if clubs would go out of existence. So there's a lot of unsung heroes in football, and as I said, these particular clubs, terrific people, great to work for. Although it was difficult financially, of course it was, and obviously you go up and down in terms of performance levels and quality, because you have to maybe lose a lot of your top players. You can't quite replace them at the same level, and as a manager you're going to get criticised for that. But as I mentioned to you earlier on, Derek, sometimes you have to keep things to yourself, and you have to keep it away from supporters. Not because you're trying to, people talk about the term transparency, not because you're not wanting to be transparent with the club, but you're trying to protect the club and protect the players. and just trying to make sure that the club survived.
I mean, you couldn't just do a book in your time at Dundee. I mean, it'd be an encyclopedia. I mean, incredible cup finals, administration, the calibre of player you were involved in, the signings, the owners, directors. I mean, obviously Dundee fans will forever remember the time when you're bringing Fabrizio Ravanelli and you sing Craig Burley. Yeah. There was even a time, was there not, talk of Edgar Davids from Juventus?
Yeah.
Tell me about those times. What do you? I mean, Ravanelli coming in.
Yeah, I mean,
astounding.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Giovanni wanted to bring in a high-profile player. He wanted to
Giovanni Di Stefano, of course.
Di Stefano wanted to bring in a high-profile player. Wanted to enhance the reputation of the club, or the profile of the club. Sorry. So in a more global aspect, the illusions of grandeur, really, to try and make Dundee this kind of more popular club, more known throughout the UK and Europe.
Did you think he was deluded as well when you first heard it?
Not so much deluded, but I didn't. I just had my doubts about the whole financial situation.
Reality of it,
yeah. I just didn't think it was viable. But I think also you've got to remember, I'm an employee. My job is to do what directors or owners ask you to do. You've got to remember that you're an employee. You're not the guy that that runs the club. You're the guy that works for the club.
So when Ravanelli, now, was it Giovanni that first pitched the idea of Ravanelli to you?
No.
How did that come about?
It was basically we're looking for a high profile player or that. We spoke to Paul Gascoigne actually back in the day, and Paul.
You did.
Yeah. And unfortunately Paul had issues and just couldn't manage to get himself, or we couldn't manage to get
to sign him?
Yeah,
to sign him, really?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Like a kind of player coach type of role towards the end of his career, but again that profile of somebody like Paul, but it just didn't work out.
How many conversations did you have with him?
Well, I had one with him and one with his pal Jimmy, so
Five Bellies.
Yeah, so we had one with him in a phone call and then one with Paul, but it just didn't work out. As I said, everybody knows Paul's situation and some of the issues he had.
Paul Gascoigne at Dundee would have been astonishing.
Yeah, but anyway, it didn't work out. So we're looking for high profile players or somebody that could capture the imagination. Obviously, you got to remember Dundee had Claudio Canigia there before I'd went the year before. I mean,
of course,
so I mean, they were already
World
a superstar player, there, and so at that kind of level. So it wasn't then out of the question when those type of things were muted. So anyway, we looked, and the Ravanelli situation was that he was available, and we managed to get in contact with him. He checked with, sadly no longer with us now, a good friend of mine, Gianluca Vialli, who they obviously knew each other well. Kind of just asked them about myself and basically just getting a little bit of an insight into the type of person I was. Thankfully, Lucas said some nice things, so therefore we managed to get a conversation with him, and he agreed to come. And Craig Burley was through a third party agent in essence. We spoke, and that was another situation where those two players. I mean, you've got to remember, one's an international, Italian international, one's a Scottish international. So to bring those two players in was a fantastic opportunity from a football perspective.
See the moment Fabrizio, Italian superstar, Champions League winner. See the moment he said to you, "I'm coming." Did that, even though you're an experienced manager, does that give you such a wow factor, a real kind of buzz, a real excitement?
Yeah, but again,
it's incredible this is happening.
Again, I spoke earlier on about some players that can lift the professionalism of a football club, lift the reputation, the stature, the standing, and he was that type of player. Straight away we had the media all want to know about it. We had much more media attention than we've probably ever had since Canigia obviously had signed, and so it wasn't a common thing for a club like Dundee to have that type of exposure, media exposure, but a player with his profile brought that.
How was his attitude, Jim? How was he to deal with?
He was ultra professional, which I thought initially he would get frustrated. He was frustrated by the facilities. We're training at the Michelin factory, or we're training at, Gussie Park, or we're training in public parks, and he couldn't understand this. He just couldn't get his head around this. Why have we not got our own training ground? Why is the training pitch not of a standard that you can do things properly on? When we're training bits of spare ground and things like that.
Was there a time where even had to go in advance to clear dog dirt or whatever to make sure, was it?
Well, wasn't it maybe quite as bad as that? But you're basically just looking at sometimes little patches where you could find a decent patch of grass where you could train on. And, it was different places at different times. So he would get frustrated, and then we trained in one of the times in one of the junior grounds and had a decent pitch. And he would think, why do we not have this all of the time? And why have we not got this? Why can we not make this our training ground? So he was going to Giovanni Di Stefano at the time, and then he was buying into that. He was then saying, yeah, that's what we will do. We will get this, and we will, lift the club to the next level. And that was his idea, and that's what he was telling us. Unfortunately, as I said to you, it didn't last too long, and then with the club went under. But after a couple of weeks, and had a little chat with him, because he was getting frustrated with the standards and things like that. And then I said to him, look, all of these places are looking at you as a kind of leader, as a mentor, to lift them to the next level, to guide them, to give them the benefit of your experience, your talent. And he actually took it on board and started talking to some of the younger players and talking to some of the other boys and giving them advice and giving them, positive feedback to them and stuff like that. And, again, just his sheer professionalism was top class. So
bringing in Fabrizio, did that then encourage you that you think you could get Edgar Davids at Juventus? What was the reality of that? What was the substance to that?
Well, the substance was, again, Giovanni had came to me and said that he had managed to get a contact to speak to him, had basically thrashed out a deal, and that my job was to go over to Italy and convince him to sign for Dundee. And people think that you're making this up, but this is true. And I always thought I had in my head before I'm going, right, okay, Edgar, you're coming from, your penthouse apartment in the outskirts of Turin. We're playing Brecon in the Forfarshire Cup tie on Tuesday. We'd like you to be available. There's a lovely big hedge around the pitch. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. I think he was on about 80 grand a week at that time. There. I thought to myself, yeah, you want to come to the SPFL? It'd be a real thrill for you. And we train at Gussie Park on a Tuesday and a Thursday in the Michelin factory, and a Monday and a Friday. So I just didn't see that ever see that happening. And again, as I said to you, when I think information filtered back that it wasn't quite as far along the line as we thought it might be, so it never materialised.
You never got the flight to Turin?
No, I didn't get it. But it was just it was something that was it was factual, that it was to do it. And there was another few other players. I spoke to Georgie Kincladze, spoke to him, spoke to his agent, and then his agent moved the goalpost right at the last minute. He was due to fly up. I think I flew down to meet them, and then I flew back up again. I think we were playing Dundee United. I think the Sunday he was due to fly up on the Saturday, and then I got a call saying that they wanted a little bit extra, and then that was that get hit in the head.
A seriously heady times for a manager when you're actually given carte blanche or licence to go for that kind of player. See, when you look back on that, it was almost like fantasy football kind of stuff. You're given that licence to go, thrilling, exciting.
Well, it is, but I always felt a bit, I would say disappointed. I think it was more than that. I think it was a bit more embarrassed, because the likes of Craig Burley's a top international Scottish player. Fabrizio Ravanelli, had gone to my pal Luca and asked him, about me as a person. So although I'm not paying the wages technically, you're still the guy that talks to the players. You're still the guy that's convincing those players to come and sign for you. So you're the messenger in essence, and I often felt that, those type of guys are probably looking at me and thinking, you didn't tell us the truth. You let us down, even though I know in my heart that I was 100%, believing that was, you know, they would be paid, and you know, these things would you know, take the club to the next level. These type of players could help us, but sadly that just didn't happen. You know,
I mean, I look at the Dundee team in the cup final, 2003 cup final, Jim. You know, Nemzadze, tremendous midfielder. Sadly, the late Fabian Caballero, Gianluca Vialli, Speroni. Must have been a joy to have those kind of players when you looked around, and you had good Scottish players as well, and Barry Smith and Dave Mackay, Gavin Ray,
Lee Wilkie.
Cracking dressing room to look around there. Jim.
Yeah, I mean, even underrated players like Gary Brady and stuff like that, you know, Stephen Milne. Yeah, but there were some terrific players at the club, obviously. Nacho Novo.
Nacho, of course,
went on and did so well at Rangers, you know. And, there was a host of really, really good players there.
Characters like Jamie Langfield as well, a vibrant dressing room, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had, as I said to you, we had a lot of talent, a lot of good players, and obviously a lot of these players went on and did really well for themselves. International players, as you mentioned, Gavin and Lee both be capped for Scotland, and you know, fantastic. Giovanni Speroni had a fantastic career down at Crystal Palace. I mean, just really good players, really good guys. As I mentioned to you, it's a fantastic dressing room. And like any manager, you know, if you've got good players, it helps you. It helps your reputation as a manager. I mean, we went to the cup final. We got into Europe. We finished in the top 6. All these sort of things. And I might be wrong, but I know Dundee haven't got to another cup final since then. And I think, you know, that was the first Scottish Cup final for I don't know, 40 years or something like that before it. So it's it's great to look back and think that was a great time for the football club. But ultimately, it's bitter. It's bittersweet because the football was great, but always in the horizon was the follow on to it, and that was having to move all those players on, try and get as much money in as possible to keep the club afloat, keep the club surviving, and then the horrible part of then having to literally cull
the financial side of it.
2/3 of the team, and that's one of the worst times in my football career when I had to do that.
I think like all of the managers I've spoken to in our one-on-one series, Jim, there's been brutal sackings, and your sacking, I think, was probably as brutal as any. Obviously, there'd been a financial crash. Unfortunately, the club eventually got relegated. You've then got them top of the first division. You then get the tin tack, and you're thinking, where's the justice in that?
Well, you do at times, but listen,
just keep the club alive for you would have been an achievement.
Football's like that, you know. That's the nature of it. As I said to you, you know, it's very instant and impactful. So if you don't do what someone thinks you should be doing straight away, then people want you to change it. And you hear it so often. Oh, they've taken the club as far as they could, and it's time for a change. And there's a lot of phrases that get bandied around. But as I mentioned to you, Derek, the toughest part was I had to get all of the players in, all the staff in, and literally just say to them, if you hear your name getting read out, pick up all your belongings and your boots, and you have to leave. Not you're getting paid, because you're not getting paid.
That's horribly clinical, Jim, isn't it?
Yeah, and a lot of the foreign players whose English wasn't brilliant didn't quite understand that. So when I'm reading out names, they're thinking, well, what's happening? But basically, I just had literally almost like a school register. I had to just say the names that the administrators had given me, and we're in a big room, and I just had to say them all, and it was heartbreaking. And staff had to take cuts, and as I said, players were leaving without any financial compensation whatsoever.
Anyone that knows you, Jim, knows you're a compassionate person. So for you to deliver it, having to deliver it in such a cold, clinical fashion, would have just gone against the grain for you.
Yeah, but it was the only way you could do it. You just had to. It's like giving someone bad news. You just had to take a deep breath and do it. And again, as I said, as a manager, you know, your really responsibility should be what happens on the pitch and the football side of it. But in that particular occasion, I was working alongside the administrators, so I had to give that information out. Now, I'm guessing, sadly, when we've seen the likes of Dumbarton and Inverness in recent weeks, that happened. I'm guessing the managers wouldn't have had to do that. I'm presuming a director of football or some sort of football and that side of it, the director side of it, would have probably have done that. But then I'd done it, and as I said, it was tough. And then we had the second part of that. Then after the administrators we'd done all that and taken the club to the bare bones, how do we keep the club going? And then how do we manage to keep them from putting the key in the door?
Now, there's a lot of managers, particularly Celtic Rangers, that have been flown in by private jet, Jim. I mean, unforgettably at Hibs, you're flown in by a helicopter. How big time did you feel with that? How did you react when you were getting told you're flying in by a helicopter?
Well, it was Tom Farmer, and Tom...
You must have felt...
Tom owned
the bee's knees.
The club at the time. And I didn't really know anything about it, to be honest with you. It was just a kind of... I was wanting to say cheerio to the players. And Tom had said they'd put on the thing, the helicopter, so that I could say cheerio to the players, but still be at training. So fly over, obviously, the fourth or the tee or whatever way we went. Although I think some Hibs fans might have thought that keep the propeller running and just send them back to Dundee. So I don't think I was there too long to see whether it was a good move or not. But yeah, but listen, it was a wee bit kind of Hollywoody and then quite funny. And I remember kind of going to the back of the stand. I think I've got a flats and that there built there now, and then coming across. So yeah, I mean, I think it gave you don't get me wrong, it did give you the impression, listen, you're going to a big club here.
Aye.
This is a big move. Somebody picks you up in a helicopter and takes you there. Yeah, it does kind of get the pulses racing, and and you get that kind of again media coverage. You're thinking, this is a big job.
What were the boys, your friends at the barracks saying about you coming in the helicopter?
I
getting
know.
slaughtered for that?
Okay. I mean, listen.
You must have got annihilated for that. I
mean, listen. I'm sure there's a few phrases where the term chopper might have been used, and it wasn't the one that Tom Hardy played in the movie, but yeah, I think it was Tom Hardy. No, I'm not sure, but I think anyway. But you get a bit of banter and a bit of laugh, and you can kid on about it. Looking back, you can kid on about it, but yeah, it was more the fact is it was the easiest way to get to the club to start training.
I mean, you were director of football at Hearts as well for a couple of months under Romanov.
Yeah.
I mean, we could spend an hour talking about the directors and owners you've worked with. I mean, even 2 months under Romanov as director of football, how would you? Is there a word you would describe? One word you could pick to describe that experience?
Unique. Yeah, he was completely unique. It's just I mean, it was a guy that had his own mind, the way he wanted the club run. And again, a lot of Hearts fans bought into it, and it was a successful time. If you think about it, the George Burley
that particular season,
they split the old firm eventually at the end
2005 or 6.
So you had George Burley to start with, and then Graham Ricks came in, and then Ivanauskas took off after that. Obviously, I was in amongst it. John McGlynn was there at the time, and John doing a fantastic job. I know you spoke to John recently, doing a phenomenal job at Falkirk. So yeah, I mean, again, the amount of players, I was there when they brought all the players in the January window, and there wasn't even enough room in the dressing room, so we're putting seats in the shower area. Because we didn't want the new players to feel that they weren't part of so we're having to squeeze everybody in and move everybody in. But there's some big characters in that dressing room. Craig Gordon, Stephen Presley, Andy Webster, Robbie Nielsen, Paul Hartley, guys that they were great characters, and they wanted to win, and they had a real desire to be successful. And vast majority of them have had fantastic careers. And amongst a lot of the other players that came from the various countries, but it was just a bit of a mishmash at times, and just too much. I think if somebody could have just held on to his coattails a little bit and just held them back a little bit and said, okay, the idea's there, the understanding of bringing in a few players, but just so many at the one time, it meant you're having like two groups, and I keep getting back to that atmosphere and creating that kind of bond amongst the players and that kind of familiarity and that friendliness, if you want to call it. It was hard to know everybody because you're only seeing them for seconds here and there, and they were all in different groups when they were training and things like that. So I think the principle was right. I think obviously it was successful. We won the Scottish Cup that year. After I left, I think I left about the semi-final. But ultimately, again, if you give one person total responsibility, if that person either decides to leave or have some financial changes or whatever, then the club is going to be in difficulties. And that's what happened when I had Ron Dixon. Obviously, it initially at Dundee, when obviously it happened at Dundee the second time around. It happened at Hearts when Romanoff leaves or moves on or whatever. So yeah, it can put clubs in peril, and that's the difficulty. There's you need to get the balance right by having a successful football team, but also balancing the books.
Obviously, you went down south. You had Norwich, you had Portsmouth, Chelsea, Jim. Unforgettable time for you. 3 years was it, Jim? You had 3 years.
3 years, just under 3 years.
Amazing times. You're coaching people like Zola, Poyet, Di Matteo, just to name but a few. But you struck up a particular friendship with Gianluca Vialli, and that was special for you and will always be special for you. Sadly, obviously, Gianluca passed away, and but tell me about that friendship and what it means to you, the kind of person he was.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing again was a completely freakish kind of phone call you get. I'd left Hibs, as you mentioned, and sacked for Hibs, and deservedly so. No complaints about it. Didn't do a good enough job, so you get the sack. And again, we go back to, you spoke to me earlier on, when you leave a club, and I left at Falk, you think, am I going to get back in? So I've left now at Hibs, but I'm about 38, 39, something about that. I'm still relatively young in coaching and management side. No idea what I'm going to be doing next, doing a little bit of media stuff and, and enjoying that, but that's what you're doing. And then I got a phone call for Gwen Williams, who I think was general manager at that time down at Chelsea. I thought it was a bit of a wind-up, as you do. I think somebody's at the wind-up. But anyway...
Would you think it was Chick or somebody like that phoning?
Just somebody. I just thought
couldn't be right.
Just this is a wind-up. So anyway, gets a call, get invited down. They arrange it as a club at Chelsea would do. Tickets, flights, down, picked up at the airport, taken to the training ground, taken to the ground. Met Luca for the first time and pre-match for the game. Had pre-match, watched the game, took me back, phoned me on the Monday, offered me the job. So that was great.
Gianluca was manager, of course, at that particular time.
He was a player manager. But again, it was like a whole different job because it was an under-19 manager, or coach, sorry. And I had something I hadn't done before, obviously being the manager or assistant, either at Dundee or Airdrie, as you mentioned, Falkirk and stuff like that, so, and obviously manager at Hibs. So, but that was the best thing that probably could have happened to me because it took me away from the firing line of a manager, took me away from the stress and the kind of demands of a manager and just allowed you to be on a training pitch and coach. And the other thing was, for the first time, when you went to a football club, you didn't have, not every pound was a prisoner. If you wanted a bag of balls, there was a bag of balls. You didn't have to put a purchase order in for them. As I did to do with Ron Dixon, which he thought was I could get balls at a gas station, as he told me. So and
doors were opened.
Yeah,
in London.
Yes, and
restaurants and
yes, exactly. Robbie Di Matteo had the restaurants. We used to go to Robbie's restaurant. Luca would take you to some lovely restaurants and all this kind of stuff. Ray Wilkins, the late Ray Wilkins, a fantastic man.
Great man.
Came and worked there as well. So again, we talk about atmosphere and camaraderie, and all the staff was great. Eddie Nizwicki, the goalkeeping coach, and Luca, as I said, Ray, Graham, Rick. They were all really good people, and it's a great atmosphere. Mick McGivern, the reserve coach. It was just really good people again, and the staff. Even though it was a big club, the staff in the office were all really good, really down to earth and that. So I just loved it. And obviously, my first kind of crop of younger players. I remember my first game. John Terry playing against Alan Smith, who became the striker. Was at Leeds. We were playing Chelsea Leeds, and he became an England striker and became an England centre back and things like that. John Harley, and then I had likes of Carlton Cole, Michael Fursell, Sam Delabona. There was just so many talented young players, and a lot of other ones all played at all different levels.
What was it about you and Gianluca you think that you just clicked? Your personalities, you just hit it off?
I think my Scottish humour probably was one part of it. didn't take things too seriously. He was obviously so intense and such a perfectionist that I was maybe the opposite at times, just a little bit off the cuff.
Did you appreciate the boldness as well, possibly, if you're
listen,
not being disrespectful here?
I don't know about the boldness, but but I used to wind him up because he had such a physique on him, and I used to say, "Going to give me a line of that body for the weekend," because we all got changed in the same dressing room, and the dressing room was probably not much bigger than this kind of area here we're sitting in. So you were always kind of close together and stuff like that. But no, he was such a generous man, just as I said, that perfect. But the biggest thing I learned from a footballing side of it was the individuality. In other words, taking each player as an individual and then putting the collective together. In Scotland, before that, everyone was always a group. So if you'd done weights, for instance, if you were doing weight training, everyone literally lifted the same weight, whether you were 5'4" or 6'4", and the manager would invariably screaming at you if you couldn't do 10 reps. But if you're lifting the same weight as someone twice your size, it didn't make sense. But that's what we all done.
Yeah.
But down there, everybody had individual programs because obviously staying from Italy, this first time I came across a sports scientist. So all that kind of stuff. So that professionalism.
Immaculate, was he? Just always
absolutely
summed out
immaculate in his own range of clothing and that stuff. But it was all just everything, as I said to you, professional, the nutrition, the diet, and it was written in stone. You know, there was no flexibility. If that's what you ate, you know, this is when you trained, and there was no what you call it kind of fun training, for wanting a better phrase. In Scotland, you usually have wee daft things where somebody crawls through somebody's legs, jumps on the shoulder, just wee fun, you know, kind of things to try and change the atmosphere at times. Usually you do it if you've maybe not some good results, and maybe that's the reason why maybe I knew some of these things and maybe too many bad results. But things like that, they wouldn't do. You know, he wouldn't do things like that because that wasn't done in Italy. You know, team building days and all that kind of stuff. He didn't do all that over there. So if I'd done some stuff off the cuff, every now and again he would say to me, "Well, you take a wee session." Now I would only be taking the session for 20 minutes or half an hour. And
he's watching on, he's looking on.
But it was more because he knew that he wasn't that personality to go and just have this fun session. So I would have a wee bit more fun with him, and then I would step away, and then he would come in with the problem.
What was it like socially if you had a night out with him? Was he wine rather than beer? Was he more refined? Was he?
Yeah, he would have it, but it wasn't like a big drinker.
Because you're teetotaler, you've always been a teetotaler.
Yeah, but he wasn't a big drinker. But yeah, he would just have a glass of wine. Stuff. I remember, funny enough, you say that it triggers memories. And I remember we went to this restaurant in Knightsbridge one time, and him and Ray Wilkins and a couple of other people were in, and the singers Andrea Boccicelli was in it. The tenor singer. So anyway, he knew him, obviously Italian and stuff like that, and talking away and introducing us anyway. And they ordered some wine for the table, and whatever pasta. This is when you know you're at a certain level. They had Vialli pasta. They had a pasta dish named after him in the restaurant. So anyway, we get the.
You mean there's no Duffy pasta?
No,
in Mary Hill,
unfortunately, there's no Duffy
okay.
pasta. There might be Duffy coffee doing Jack and Ellie's down the road there, maybe. But anyway, so we ordered, and then obviously the wine comes, and they're ordering the wine. It was Ray ordered it because again for the Italy, and they know the proper wines. But thankfully, because in this type of restaurant, Luca covered it, should we say? So that was really nice. But anyway, I'll do this very quickly. So it was my pal's birthday, a kind of major birthday, a couple of years later, and I phoned Ray. I was back up the road and I phoned Ray. I said, "Ray, see that wine?" I said, "That was beautiful wine. My pal loves a red wine." "Oh, he's such a nice guy, Ray." "No problem, Jim. I've got bottles here. I'll get it set up for you and all that." He says, "You get it in a dozen bottles, 6 bottles." I said, "Well, 6 bottles, that'll be fine. No problem at all. Send it up." It was £98 a bottle. I nearly fainted. I said when he said that. And by the way, so what it cost in a Knightsbridge restaurant, I do not know. So, but you can probably two or three times that. So thankfully, Luca paid for it, and again,
wow.
The first time, I know I'm talking too much here, but
no,
anyway,
not at all.
The first time we went, when players up here and staff up here, when they used to go at the end of the season, most players back in the day went to Magaluf or somewhere, sometimes Ibiza or whatever it happens to be. So Luca says, "Okay, we're going to wait at the end of the season, taking all the staff away. Bring your passports in." So I brought my passport in, didn't know where we're going. No telling us where we're going. Just bring your passport in, make sure everything's ready. And then we get to the airport and they took us to Bermuda. So slightly different. And again, private hotel, private beach, all top notch. It was just out of this world. And again, as you say, I'm now thinking, this is just a different level. And I'm part of this. And that's when, probably the first time that realisation of you're at a club like Chelsea hit me. I'm thinking to myself, I'm flying to Bermuda with these guys here and playing golf and, you know.
Where did it all go wrong?
Yeah, exactly what it done. And just thinking, this is just amazing. You know, this is an opportunity or a time in your footballing life you've really got to appreciate. So I really did, and it was a fantastic time. And yeah, and I did go on well, and we did have a few laughs with him. I mean, not many people know, but we had the Christmas night, and I'd done a Stars in Your Eyes. If anybody's old enough to remember Stars in Your Eyes, it was basically people get dressed up and became a singer. So I organised it all in a hotel with wigs and microphones and, you know, all sorts of things. And Luca and the doc, the club doc, were Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta doing Summer Nights or Summer Lovin', whatever it is. So yeah, and I've got, you know, we had a great night, and all the staff, they all done it. Obviously Eddie's Nizwicki was well, so he had to be Tom Jones to get the medallion.
That's not unusual, Jim.
Yeah, so well, you're quite sharp there.
Sorry about that.
No, as we sit here and the green grass are home for me because it's Mary Hill.
We'll just stop this now.
Yeah, we'll stop it now. So anyway, so we all done all these type of things, and singers and all the staff all took part, and so something like that. We look at, that's when you know that he trusts you, because that was only with a very small group of people in a very private area and only for us, and that's when you know he trusts you as a friend.
I know, obviously, in his final years when his health was deteriorating, he won the Euros with Italy, fabulous. But I know you.
Right after it.
I was going to say you keep in touch with him, keep exchanging messages. So I mean, emotionally, it would have been very emotional for you when he sadly passed.
Yeah, well, I had a wee joke with me because he said I obviously texted him right after it to say
the Euros.
Yeah, because obviously it was Italy beating England, and obviously the rivalry with Scotland and England, and he said, oh yeah, I thought I said I was as a Scotsman, he said I knew you'd be happy and that kind of stuff, and we just had a wee exchange, and for a few times after that, and then sadly when he took on well again, you know, it was private with him and his family, and it was such a tragic and sad time. And again, as I said to you, he was one of the fittest guys I've ever met, but just shows you when cancer gets a hold of you, it doesn't matter how fit you are. If you can see that now with the great Sir Chris Hoy, things like that, you know, it's got no respect for the person you are or the reputation you have, I'm afraid.
Well, you work with the Stars in football, now you're driving the Stars and the celebrity stars, again, so it's a wee change of life for you, Jim, but enjoying it?
I'm enjoying it, Derek. As I said, it gives me a focus, it gives me something to look forward to. As I said, you've got to be pragmatic and realistic as you get to my age. It doesn't mean that you should be put out to sea, but listen, it's naturally in football. Football evolves, and you know, you get a little bit less media and a little bit, you know, you're not involved in football so much. You know, you maybe do little things in the background now and again, but you want to work. You want to still be contributing to society. You want to give yourself, as I said, something to get up in the morning for, get showered, get ready, get out. You know, speak to people, meet people. You've known me a long time, so you know, chatting's never been a problem as we've sat here for the last hour. So I like doing it, and as I said, and yeah, sometimes it's with relatively well known, sometimes very well known people, and sometimes it's just with normal, down to earth people who want a pick up at the airport or a drop off somewhere at a hotel or whatever, or going to visit friends or going to town for a night out. So I really enjoy it, and you know, as I said, I just keep working away, and if something happened in football, great. If it doesn't happen, I had a fair kick at it, so I can't complain.
Jim, you're one of my favourite people in football, and I'm delighted you're in a good place and a new lease of life. I've loved the chat. Thank you.
Good. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Jim. Cheers.
Cheers, Derek.